Hi guys, welcome to Pokey. In today's video, I want to try to go over the onboarding cycle that I've used um, to onboard customers, and we built this through years of iterations at the startup where I work. And I'm pretty sure that you can leverage some of this for your own business. So let's dive into it. Okay, let me have my notes. Wait. Okay. So the first thing that you need to consider if you have like a service based business or if you just in general need to interact with clients and onboard them is that you need to have some sort of discovery. In this discovery call, this phase, what happens is that you typically meet that customer and you ask them certain questions to help you get a better understanding of what's going on in their environment holistically and specifically in that department or whatever. So then help them accomplish their goals and see what could be some barriers to finishing the onboarding, or what things could accelerate it. So, to give you an example, at Doctors, we work with um, attorneys or procurement professionals. And so, when I get some of these clients, I asked them, like, what does your negotiation cycle look like? What is that process? Um, like, do you foresee any heavy periods of contract inflows that would impact our onboarding or any vacations or maternity leave, things like that. So I have like very detailed questions that we've been able to create as time has gone. So regardless of what business you have, be sure to create a list of questions for when you onboard your customers. Sometimes, depending on the size, if it's like a big team, what we also do is that we send them like a uh, pre pre meeting sheet where they have an idea of what they're going to be asked, and that way they are prepared for that discovery call. And so what this looks like in another setting is like, for example, one of my clients, she has a chiropractic office. So she's dealing with patients that need adjustments. So that discovery call for her is when the front desk person gets a call or gets an inquiry from like hey, like a new patient. So they ask like a lot of information about like, hey, like, have you been seen by someone else, like, are you experiencing any sort of pain, um similar questions to that. So you just need to, hopefully you kind of get the idea of the purpose of the discovery call, just trying to find out, like, what's the problem. In my case, in my business, I also have a discovery call when I have potential new clients. So if they book a quick consultation with me, I ask them, like, depending on the program that they choose, is like, okay, what is your biggest roadblock that you're experiencing right now? What's your company? What does your company do? How many employees do you have? Um, what are the problems that you are facing? And then trying to understand from those problems, which one is the biggest one. If like, um let's say that they have, they're not producing enough money for the company, right? um then I would ask, sometimes clients think that they know the problem when they don't really know the problem, right? So you kind of need to dig deeper. So in this case, if they're saying that they're not generating enough revenue, then I would ask, well, like, how are your expenses looking? Like, are their expenses higher than what's coming in? Then that means that they need to cut, the expenses. We need to look in there and see what is not necessary, to help. If the expenses that they do have are all like necessary, then that means that yes, we need to look into ways to bring in more money. And then within that, we need to identify like what is the best way, like looked at past campaigns to attract new clients and of which ones we can focus on. So I've kind of talked about a lot about that face. But anyways, okay, moving on to the next one. And again, this can look very different from you depending on what business you are, but you should get the general idea of that. Then you should have a kickoff call. During that kickoff call, now that you already know all the information about them, you could have an actual session where you get the people that are going to be the first ones to adopt your service or your solution. And I'm going to be leveraging my doctor's experience, the startup where I work. So for that kickoff call, you present them with the timeline, what each phase is going to look. So sometimes we have integration services, so that adds, a few more weeks. How many, whatever playbook that we are going to do. So if it's a simple contract type, it can be shorter time frame than if you're doing one that is, a little bit more complex. So you basically kind of present them with plan of action that you are going to be working with. And then after that, so if you are in customer success, depending on where you work, you'll know that sometimes you need to act as a project manager. And you kind of need to oversee the project, making sure that it's running on time. And something that has helped me is having weekly meetings set up with the main point of contact, kind of the project manager on their side, to make sure that the project keeps running, and there's no gap from either side, because it's very easy to forget, especially if that's not the only account but you have several different clients or projects that you are managing. And so that I would call it like the reoccurring sessions or meetings to make sure that the project is just running smoothly. But then also, and this again depends on like the service, but you need to have like recurring like sessions, so to make sure that you meet with the certain stakeholders. So for doctors, that means that we have several scheduled working sessions to finish the playbook, because we can't build it unless we have certain information from the client and have some time for them to review it and make sure that what we have is what they need. So, like, it's kind of a time for them to make any refinements before we go into training. And then after that, well, of course, the project gets delivered, and then we can go into training. And then after that, we just have what I've recently done is having check-in calls, like office hours, where after like the main two trainings, they have set time with me to meet every week. So that way, if they have like any questions or concerns, they have a specific time where they can drop in, ask your questions, and then they leave. And then after that, we close that onboarding officially, and then they become active clients, which is the name that we have, where then they are ready to go. They have all the training necessary, and then it's just about having like scheduled meetings with them every 4 months or so, to make sure that they are doing well. So hope you can leverage some of that knowledge into your own business, to make sure that you have a great onboarding for and great experience for you and your customers. See you in my next video. Bye bye.